So far, we've talked a lot about the agentic web and the ecosystem around it coming together, whether it's Microsoft 365 to Foundry, all the way to Windows. And I thought it would be great to have Kevin Scott, our CTO, to give you a broader perspective on this ecosystem and our collective opportunity to build a more agentic web. Welcome, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Satya. So it's super good to see you all. I think this is my 9th build as CTO of Microsoft, which seems like a really long time. And I get to come out here once a year to talk to you all. Forget that I'm an introvert for about 15, 20 minutes. And it's not like there's some magical thing that happens every May that makes me forget that I'm an introvert. It's just that there have been so many exciting things that have happened in the universe of technology over the past year, and there's so many things that are coming in the next year that I just want to share some of that enthusiasm with you all. And the thing that is really exciting me right now is something that is emerging, not solely because Microsoft wants it to happen, but because the components and the protocols and services that we've all been collectively working on for the past few years are sort of forming this thing that we've been calling the agentic web. And the thing that's really, really encouraging about it is that it's happening in an open way, which I think is a thing that we all should want a whole lot given where we're headed. I'll explain a little bit of why that's important in a minute. But before we go into the architecture of this open agentic web, let's talk about what an agent is. So I know you all probably have a bunch of different definitions in your head. It's a little bit like a Rorschach test, but the thing that I always come back to and what we're pushing towards here at Microsoft, both in terms of the agents that we're building ourselves, as well as the capability that we are trying to create to help ourselves and to help you all make your own agents, is that an agent is a thing that a human being is able to delegate tasks to. And over time, the tasks to which you are, the tasks that you're delegating to these agents are becoming increasingly complex. And that's the thing that we're aiming for over time. The thing that we've seen over the past year is just sort of an explosion of agents themselves. So this is our diagram of what the agentic web looks like. And at the very top of the stack is a richer and richer ecosystem of agents that we're building, our partners are building, that you all are building, and we're just going to see more coming over the next year. And the striking thing about what's happened with these agents over the past year is that they're being used more and more frequently than ever before. So across the agents that we have visibility on, the daily active users, since I was here last time chatting with you all at Build, have more than doubled. So just people using them at an incredibly increasing and accelerating rate. But the bigger thing that I think has happened is that these agents, because of the new reasoning models that have launched over the past year, have been able to really take on extremely complicated tasks. And you've seen a whole bunch of this stuff already from Satya and from the folks who've been on stage to provide demos. Just the incredible things that some of these agents can do right now, particularly in software engineering. And you guys are going to see more and more of that over the course of Build. But sort of sitting on top of the agent layer of this agentic web stack is a thing called the runtime layer. And the runtime is again sort of an emerging set of components that we are building. The thing that I just mentioned that's gotten really good over the past year is the reasoning layer, or the reasoning component inside of the runtime layer here. The reasoning capabilities of these models is going to continue to get better and better. If anything, right now, I think we have a little bit of a capability overhang with reasoning. So the models are more powerful than what we collectively are using them for at the moment. And one of my big challenges to all of you this year at Build is to just sort of think about how you can set your ambition level to 11, to try to target some things that you think are barely possible right now in terms of reasoning capability. Because the models are going to get so much more powerful and so much cheaper over the course of the next 12 months that we don't want that capability overhang getting bigger than it already is. But there are a whole bunch of things in addition to reasoning that need to be built that are just sort of basic software engineering. A thing that's been conspicuously missing for a while with agents is like really robust agentic memory. We've approximated it a bunch of ways with things like RAG and with long context windows. But the thing that you really want your agents to be able to do is to like have a rich memory over which they can recall with real breadth, and where you can have high precision in the recollection so that the things that are being pulled back out of memory are like accurate and you can trust them and rely upon them. And so there's just super interesting stuff happening. Like we open sourced a system called Type Agent that you all can learn more about later here at Build, that is one way that we're trying to tackle this agentic memory, which is just really important to make them less transactional. So they can solve a problem once and recall the solution. They can remember their interactions with you so that like they can become personalized and understand your preferences. The same way that you would expect from someone that you were delegating a task to or that you were collaborating with. So this whole runtime layer, the way that you can think about how Microsoft is delivering these components and participating in the community, is these things are going to be offered in Azure Foundry. Azure Foundry is going to get richer and richer and richer over the coming year, and you're going to hear my colleague Jay Parikh and a bunch of other folks talking about that Foundry layer and this runtime in much greater depth. But the thing that is super important, if you think about what an open agentic web could be, is you need agents to be able to take actions on your behalf. And one of the really important things about agents being able to take actions on your behalf is they have to be plumbed up to the greater world. So you need protocols, things like MCP and A2A and things that likely are going to be emerging over the coming year that will help connect in an open, reliable, interoperable way the agents that you are writing and the agents that are being used so actively now by hundreds of millions of people to be able to go access content, to access services, to take action on behalf of users in fulfilling the tasks that have been delegated to them. And so the super exciting thing that we really want to talk about here at this build is our real serious commitment to MCP. So MCP has just taken off like crazy over the past handful of months, and there's a good reason for it. It's filling an incredibly important niche in this open web, open agentic web ecosystem. It's a very simple protocol, like akin to HTTP in the internet, where it allows you to do really sophisticated things just because the protocol itself doesn't have much in the way of opinion about the payload that it carries. Which also means that it's a great foundation which you can layer things on top of. And if you think about how the internet itself emerged, like that composability of components and layering of protocols was really important to get to the richness. It gives you good starting places, and it gives you the ability to solve problems as you discover them as things are developing over time. So, we have heard from Satya, like just now, about the MCP registry in Windows. Like we're doing a ton of work to enable Microsoft's first-party platform components and first-party services to be MCP uplifted. Like we've chosen it as our standard protocol for agentic communication, like between agents and from agents to services. And then we're going to be doing a whole bunch of work over the next handful of months with our partners and collaborators at Anthropic to make sure that the really tough enterprise problems that need to be solved on top of a protocol like MCP get resolved and solved. Like how an agent identifies itself, how you build a really rich entitlements infrastructure so we can permission agents to have access to the systems they need to have access to. And then we are going to be just really, really supporting the open community here. Partially that is because, like when you think about the utility of a protocol at this layer of the stack, the most important thing is ubiquity. We can get into all sorts of arguments, and I know you all are perfectly capable of this, as am I, as engineers, like where you've got really sharp opinions about pieces of technology and like, this thing's a little bit better than that thing. But what's better than all of that is like just getting something standard that we can all use and build on top of. And like, we hope that thing is MCP. So the thing that I want to talk about next is, I mentioned layering. And so if you think back to the web, we have HTTP. And then we had things that sit on top of HTTP, like HTML mainly, that are opinionated about the payload. And so we're announcing today, and you all should go check out the code in the GitHub repo, NLWeb. And the idea behind NLWeb is it is a way for anyone who has a website or an API already to very easily make their website or their API an agentic application. It lets you implement and leverage the full power of large language models to enrich the services and products that you're already offering. And because every NLWeb endpoint is by default an MCP server, it means that those things that people are offering up via NLWeb will be accessible to any agent that speaks MCP. So you really can think about it a little bit like HTML for the agentic web. We have done a bunch of work already with partners who have been really excited and been able to really very quickly get to quick implementations and prototypes using NLWeb. We've worked with TripAdvisor, O'Reilly Media, a ton of like really great companies that offer important products and services on the internet to add NLWeb functionality to their sites so that they can have these agentic experiences directly on their sites. And one of the things that I wanted to show you all to just sort of ground you in the capabilities is like how you all might be able to go out right now, although you shouldn't do it right now, like wait to hear all of the amazing finish of Satya's keynote, please. But like right after that, you can go grab code from this depot, and like what we're showing here is a way for you all to put an agentic NLWeb user interface on top of any GitHub repo that you have access to. So what we're showing on the screen is like you run this Python script, it talks to the GitHub API, it extracts a whole bunch of data from your GitHub repo. Here you're seeing Jennifer Marsman, who's a member of my team in the office of the CTO, who's the best demo builder on the planet, who is like getting all of the metadata and data out of her repos into a NLWeb repository. The second thing that you do is you go run a little script that takes all of this data, computes a bunch of embeddings for it in this case, and you have a ton of choice here about which model you're using, which embeddings you're using, which vector store that you're sticking the embeddings in for the NLWeb server to have access to. And as soon as you compute the embeddings and import them, in this case, into a local vector store that's running on her laptop, then you're able to make some really interesting queries on top of it. So in this case, like you can do more than what you would get just with a database query or some kind of information retrieval thing. You're able to say like, hey, I wrote this piece of code. It was in some PR I don't remember. Like I need to recall the name of this algorithm. And like that's the sort of thing that NLWeb can do. And like things that we honestly aren't going to even be able to imagine, which is why we're making this open source, and we're hoping to hear a ton of feedback from you all about how we can improve and make NLWeb better. Because again, like we think that the sum total of your imagination operating on the agentic web is going to make the agentic web a fundamentally more interesting thing than we would have if one entity was trying to do everything alone. So you can learn more about these things from these two talks in particular. So there is a fantastic talk at 4:30 to 5:30 today on how you can turn your website into an AI app. And then the memory stuff that I was referencing, we've got a talk from 1:45 to 2 p.m. today that is going to be really awesome. So the last thing that I want to say before handing things back over to Satya is to just sort of press on these like 2 points about why like open is so important here. So, it is unbelievable what can happen in the world when simple components and simple protocols that are composable with one another are out there, exposed to the full scrutiny and creativity of every developer in the world who wants to participate or who has an idea. This, thought game that I play with myself all the time is like trying to imagine what the web would have looked like if one of the actors in the early development of the web, like say the browser manufacturers, had decided that they wanted to vertically integrate and own the entire web. 100% of the web would have been dictated by the limits of their imagination. And it's just obvious with 30 years of history that that wouldn't have been a very interesting web that we would have had, because the web is interesting because millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people are participating to make it into this rich, dynamic thing. That's what we think we need with the agentic web, and that's what we're hoping you all can get inspired to go work on a little bit, and to riff on, and to use the full extent of your imagination to help make this thing interesting. So thank you all for being at Build. I'll see you next year.